Welcome to AMEC Amplified, where we bring bold conversations and powerful voices that empower communities, students, and families to rise higher. I am your host today, Tyra Jones, founder of AMEC Programs, and today we are honored to welcome Dr. Todd Robinson, a mental health professional and one of our featured speakers from our 2025 Defying Gravity Empowerment Conference. AMEC. Dr. Robinson, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jones. Thank you for having me here. I'm humbled that you would choose me to come and speak to your audience this afternoon. And I do appreciate the opportunity to continue the conversation from the Defying Gravity Conference. Now, I do have to say, just like I did at the Defying Gravity Conference, you keep wanting to make me a professor, and maybe sometime in my future.
Oh,
but
okay. I did think that. Okay.
No, that's okay. But right now, I'm a school psychologist in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Okay. School psychologist. I have to make that change.
No
Yes.
worries.
Wonderful.
You're just speaking into my future.
Hey, look, if I can help, let me know. even if it's by mistake. So yeah.
Listen,
Right.
I don't believe there's any accidents.
There you go. There you go. Now, speaking of, at Defying Gravity, now you spoke about the intersection of stress, identity, and resilience. Can you tell our listeners, we're going to get off started on this note. Can you share with our listeners why mental health conversations are more urgent than ever?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to start by talking just real quickly about mental health, because I think when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about two things. We're talking about mental wellness, and we're talking about mental illness. Now, mental wellness is about the conditions which promote healthy and effective use of your knowledge and your intellect. And they also help maintain, mental wellness also helps maintain behavioral and emotional regulation. Now, mental illness is a number of set of different disorders that affect mood, thinking, and behavior. Some of them that we and your audience is probably fairly familiar with, at least by name, are depression, anxiety, addictions, and eating disorders. Now, if we think of health as the absence of illness or dysfunction, good mental health involves using our intellectual abilities to, one, formulate, examine, and apply knowledge, and then also to be able to use those abilities and the results of those abilities for reasonable and effective thinking.
Yes.
Now, a major potential deterrent to mental wellness is stress. And the NIH describes stress as a physical or emotional reaction that people experience as they encounter challenges in life. Stress is normal. I mean, it's a normal part of life. Everybody experiences stress, and stress is necessary, for us to grow. There's no growth without discomfort, and we don't learn, and change our behavior unless we're faced with circumstances that cause us to have to accommodate and assimilate new knowledge for different outcomes. Stress has to happen. It's going to happen, and stress is positive and negative. We probably tend to think of stress more as negative, but there are both types. A good but maybe a dramatic example of negative stress is, say somebody has their house repossessed. A kind of commensurate example of positive stress is someone purchasing a home. We think of the purchase of a home as something to celebrate, to be congratulated, but it's stressful. So we think of that as positive stress because it comes along with a positive event, or event that we think of as positive. Now, in our workplaces and in schools, we experience stressors on a daily basis. And it is important for us to be aware what stresses we're experiencing and how those stresses are impacting us. In both settings, schools and in the workplace, we're stressed by task demands often. And we can be stressed by task demands because of our ability to accomplish the task.
Yeah.
Maybe some of those tasks, again, we're in learning environments. Some of those tasks we're not necessarily fully equipped to complete well when we first experience them. That's going to be stressful. Some tasks we don't necessarily have the desire to complete. We may not be interested. They may not be meaningful to us, but we still have to complete them. That's stress inducing. There are also social expectations in both environments, and just kind of depending on personalities, your own and others, and the culture and the climate within the setting, the social expectations may be a significant source of stress. So when it comes down to it, in our home, in our school, and our work environments, we have to understand what mental health is, what's impacting our mental health, and what to do about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you were talking, I was thinking about many, many, many moments where a task became overwhelming, but I had developed some strategies to overcome in the moment. But when I noticed when when those strategies stop working,
Mm-hmm.
when I try to apply them for other situations where I'm
Mm-hmm.
stressed, when they don't work, then I'm like, okay, I have to figure something else out.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, and that's work, home, whatever, collaboration and business and things of that sort. So, yeah, I can definitely attest to a lot of what you're talking about.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
so I have a question in regards to what you shared. Now, many of our listeners are parents
Mm-hmm.
and they're educators, and then also for our students, students, with the back to school going on right now, AMEC, we decided we didn't want to do backpacks and, supplies, even though that's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Students need that, but they can get
Mm-hmm.
it from other organizations. But what we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do is to provide them solutions as to how to approach the school year.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially as a teacher, as an educator, I've seen so many memes on social media talking about, what teachers do, preparing for back to school,
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
little funny memes. And I remember, 16 years of teaching in the school system. It wasn't a nice time. On Sunday night, you start feeling that stress because you
Yes,
have to go to
ma'am.
work that Monday.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so some of these strategies that you have, I would like for you to share with our audience some strategies that our teachers, parents, and students can use to support their mental health.
Okay, okay. Yes, ma'am. And I can do that, first of all, from the standpoint of as a school psychologist working in the schools currently and experiencing Sunday nights, exactly what you're describing, exactly what you're talking about, because, there's a lot to be done, through the week. And some of the tasks are very daunting, and sometimes who you have to complete those tasks with can create challenges, in doing them
Mm,
well. So uh, I face that, and I have to deal with that day to day, week to week myself, as well as working with parents, working with teachers, and working with students who, not only are experiencing stress, but, their own challenges for how do I successfully, work through and accomplish what needs to be accomplished. So, in thinking about that, Dr. Jones, I, rather than going right into providing strategies or tools,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
really would like to talk about how to let's see, provide guidance and thoughts on how parents and teachers can think about what they're trying to accomplish. That
Absolutely.
does help them to better identify strategies, better identify tools, and have a good sense of how to use them, if it's okay for me to do that.
Absolutely. That sounds even better. Yes.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And as this focuses on parents and gives some guidance to teachers as well, I really do think that students, particularly older students, can glean from this
Yes.
for how to kind of establish their own framework of thinking to accomplish what they need to in school. Because as you're talking about back to school, that doesn't just apply to our primary and secondary students, but also college students. I just took my
Exactly.
daughter back to school not too long ago, so she's in the
Yes.
midst of this right now.
Exactly.
So as I speak, starting out, I'm going to speak to parents, but again, this applies to teachers too. And first and foremost, it's necessary for parents to have a vision.
Hmm.
They have to be looking out in the future to where we're going and what does it look like, when we get there, the why, what is this all about? And so I have a list of things for parents to think about. And again, this applies to teachers too, because teachers have an objective. They have a assignment that they have to meet through the course of the school year from August to June. So I'll speak to this in both of those ways. So as parents are looking at establishing a vision and thinking in terms of a vision, the first thing I have on the list is the question of what ideals do you uphold that your family should reflect? What do you want your family to look like? What do you want people to think? What do you want people to experience when they engage your family, when they engage an individual from your family? Well, I'll go to the next one so I don't get ahead of myself. Oh, but I do want to speak to that for teachers too, because teachers can think of it in the same way. What do I want others in this community, in the school building, to experience when they encounter my students, when
Exactly.
they encounter my class, and
Wow.
how do I help that to happen? Parents and teachers, parents first, I'll speak to that with this next one. What kind of people are we? And what kind of character are we to be known for? And actually, now that I'm stating that, I can say it in exactly the same way for teachers as well. According to my class for this year, what kind of people are we, and what character are we to be known for? Parents and teachers have to build the relationships with the children and model the qualities that they want the students to have.
Yes. Yes.
Parents and teachers have to have high expectations for their students. Kids recognize when you don't believe in them. They recognize when you don't think they can, and they recognize it from your actions. They recognize it from the things that you say to them. They recognize it from the differences that they see in the engagements with among children and among students. So it's important to have high expectations for all children. Now, children are different. They're not the same. So you're not necessarily demanding that they all do the same thing the same way.
Exactly.
But you have to have high expectations for them to do what it is that they must do at their highest ability.
Exactly.
Parents and teachers must teach responsibility and allow the children to practice it. So once it's clear what it is that they're to do, let them do it. Give them guidance on how to do it well. Give them feedback on when they've done it well as feedback for when they have made errors, when it's not exactly what it should be. Why? What was the problem? What can they do differently in order to correct it? Let that be okay that we make mistakes, even as parents and teachers. Model and making errors, model making mistakes to the children. And Dr. Jones, I want to be careful of our time. There are a number of other things
No,
that
you're okay. You're okay.
Okay,
I would
excellent.
actually like to kind of expound on that, because what
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
thinking when you were sharing that, when educators, whether you're a professor at a university, where you're a K through 12 educator, when we say teachers, we're talking about all educators. So I want to say that, but also with educators, you have to be careful how you evaluate, or better yet, how you advise a student, because so far too often as educators, and I'll say we, because I used to be an educator, we tend to punish before there's an off record, redirection.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
don't have to redirect a student on record all the time. It
Yes,
doesn't
ma'am.
have to be something that you have to show and prove to an administrator. See, look, I said this and I did that, and they still not doing this. But what did you do off the record to support the child's progress or the student's progress in whatever the task is that you're needing them to accomplish?
Yes,
So I
ma'am.
wanted to iterate that to make sure that that's being heard by the educators, because with the accountability system being the way it is now, and now that they've attached a monetary value to that accountability system,
Uh-huh.
it's all about proving that this child will not do or cannot do what I asked them to do, and I still should get my bonus,
Yes, ma'am.
as
Yes, ma'am.
opposed to truly supporting the child's mental health in your class. Like you're saying, providing that environment. What do I want my kids to get from me today?
Yes, ma'am.
Like I remember we used to have, you reminded me again, we used to have, in my class, we used to have a social contract. At the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of the year, we
Mm-hmm.
talk about how we want this environment to be, to make
Mm-hmm.
it a safe environment for learning.
Yes, ma'am.
And and everybody had their input. Okay, what do you want on the contract? What do you want on the contract? What would make this a safe environment for you? What would make this a safe environment for you? And we put that all together, and we
Yes,
put it
ma'am.
on the social contract, and then everybody goes up to the wall, because it was on a poster. Everybody goes up to the poster and sign the poster. So you
Mm-hmm.
signed the contract, and we
Yes,
kept it
ma'am.
up there all year.
Yes, ma'am.
So something like that, not necessarily, and that was a K through 12 situation. I know professors and adjunct professors, they have it different, but you can still incorporate something of that sort so that you can, off the record, support the needs of all students.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jones, that's an excellent example of setting expectations. And you incorporated something that I hadn't spoke to, but involving the community. And in this case, the community being the students in the classroom
Yeah.
for contributing to setting those expectations. And that's something that does help to produce buy-in, so
Mhm.
that they are more attached to it and more apt to work hard in order to do it. But you also included something that I didn't speak to that's important, is giving them room to not be perfect.
Yes.
Because we know we're not perfect.
Hmm.
Sometimes we expect perfection of ourselves, and that's something that we have to work on for our own mental health.
Right.
But we don't usually like it or do well with it when others expect perfection of us, particularly things that are hard, that we know that we're not necessarily going to do perfectly, and we want that space, and we have to give that same space to the students. So I'm really glad that you brought that in, and that you spoke to that. That's critical.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think there may be some place in here where I kind of get at that, but not speaking to it as directly as you did. So I
Okay.
think I stopped on have high expectations for your children. We have
Hmm.
oh, no, no, no. I was at teach responsibility and allow your children to practice it now.
Oh,
We have
okay.
to reward successful execution of the expectations. Now, to that, I want to add, with respect to the expectations, children, as parents, as teachers, the children have to know what is going to happen if they don't meet the expectations,
Yep.
as well as what's going to happen if they meet the expectations. And we have to be consistent with that. Dr. Jones, you said something in a way that, well, you referenced how this impacts mental health for children a number of times in what you just shared. And thank you for doing that, because that's what this is all about, that we are creating an environment for the children to develop well. Now, in following these steps, or in taking on this framework of thinking that I am wanting to provide, it also provides guidelines for the parent, for the teacher, in order to kind of stay anchored and to stay grounded in what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and be prepared and develop preparedness for how to respond when things don't go just so well. Because again, what we're talking about is stressful, and stress impacts mental health. But when we know how to respond to stress, when we have good ways to respond to stress, we grow, we learn, and it prepares us to to continue to deal well with stress as we experience stress in the future, because it's going to happen. So in addition to rewarding the successful execution of expectations, we need to also address missteps before they become habits. These next few things I think are very critical for the adult, as parents and teachers, that we have to be willing and able to explore legitimate reasons for why a child may be having difficulty responding to the desired expectations. Because, in some cases, the child just doesn't necessarily want to do it. In most cases, there is a reason, there is an answer. And by us exploring that, then we are equipping ourselves to address what is in the child's way of being successful. And again, that gives us as adults opportunities to learn what to do differently, what to do better. So we have to be able to do that to the adult directly. Again, the parent, the teacher, acknowledge your own stress. I'm going to say again, what we're talking about is stressful. Being raising children, developing children through the grade level so that they prepare for the next grade level. That work is stressful. Acknowledge your own stress and the difficulty you may be experiencing in your attempts to maintain the expectations, and then be flexible.
That's right.
Be willing to take on new ideas and learn new methods. So let me see. Do I go right to this? With that, you may have to consider that your methods are not the best or not adequate for what you're trying to accomplish, and then accept when positive change requires you to take steps to get knowledge that you don't have, which may mean seeking outside support.
Exactly.
And I'll stop there for just a little bit, Dr. Jones, because that's a stigma and a struggle a lot of times, to admit that I don't know, or that things aren't going as I think they should have want them to, and so I need help in order to course correct. And listen, nobody knows everything. Everybody needs help with something sometimes. Nothing that's worth doing is easy, which means that you're going to encounter something along the way that you can't do by yourself. We can't do by ourselves. So we have to seek the outside support in order to get that help, to gain what we need, to gain the knowledge we need, or to bring that outside help in to do what it is that we are not equipped to do.
Exactly.
And for teachers, let me stop here to say, for teachers, that can include, now, as I was, preparing for our talk today, Dr. Jones, obviously, I thought about the multi-tiered systems of support model and tier 1 and tier 2 steps and what all goes with that. But also for teachers thinking about the resources that are within their building to pull in, for that additional help when things are going on in their classroom that they're trying to address, but they're not seeing the correction that they're looking for. So it's fine to seek outside support. And before I say the last thing I want to say, Dr. Jones, it sounded like there was something you wanted to say.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's see if I can remember it.
My apologies.
But no problem. You were just hitting the nuggets out, and I wanted to catch all the nuggets. So, yeah, so to your mention of the resources, I was reminded that I always applied that the last school that I taught at, I tried to be assigned as an on the record mentor, teacher mentor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they, for some reason, and I know why, they never accepted my application. And I would just put it in, just knowing that they weren't going to, allow me to be a mentor to another teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I end up being an off the record mentor to a teacher who was the brother of my principal.
Interesting.
And so, and interestingly, yeah, he actually went to his brother and told him how great our collaboration was and how his success would not have happened if he hadn't had that collaboration or whatever. And I'm like,
wonderful.
Okay, it was a success. However, there's always, as educators, we like titles.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of us do. I didn't care. But
Yes, ma'am.
Titles give you the salary. Titles give you the bonus.
Right.
Titles give you the monetary compensation for accomplishing a goal.
Yes, ma'am.
So educators like titles because it equivalates to pay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, one thing that educators and parents have to realize when they're going into the school year is to leave the pride behind. Because I've seen so many times, some of my colleagues, they were lifted and boasted up in pride because they're the teacher on record,
Mm-hmm.
and a student can't come and tell them that they're not doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
But if a student knows how they learn and they know that how you're teaching is not accommodating how they learn, then why not listen to that child? Or better yet, why not listen to the parent?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
I love it that you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I have experienced that so many times with colleagues. And they would ask the question, well, why is Cy? And I remember this little boy named Cy. I don't know if his mom ever sees this. She'll probably laugh because this little kid Cy, this one was when I was teaching 5th grade. And this little kid Cy, he would act up in everybody's classroom but mine.
Okay.
And my class was actually a safe space for him. I didn't know that because he acted up in my class, but I treated him like he was my child, which I always do with everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
All students, like, you my child, and I'm going to talk to you like you my child. And even when the parents hear me, they like, oh, I thought that was your child. No, this is your child I'm talking to. But he act up in everybody's class in an extreme way, except for mine. And then it came to a point to where another teacher started sending him to my class. He started requesting to come to my class.
Okay.
So then I became marked because they didn't like him. So therefore they transferred that dislike to me.
Gotcha.
But what it did, it opened up the eyes of the parent. And then I became an advocate for the parent.
Awesome.
So, and all of that really was because of pride. Because one teacher, one educator could not be humble enough to listen to what a child is telling you, or humble enough to listen to what a parent is telling you. This is your first time giving instruction to this child, and why not listen to the child? Why not
Yes.
allow the child to be a participant in his own education?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm excited about you saying that. And again, the example that you gave, because I think that goes back to building the relationship and then modeling the appropriate qualities within that relationship. But you're also connecting the point that I previously discussed with the last point that I want to make in talking about this framework of thinking. And it is partnering, parents and educators partnering.
Yes.
So that they're able to support each other in the development of the child's ability to become what they're meant to be in the world.
Exactly.
That, for parents, it really is important to partner with the educators. And, I think it's important to talk about that because you do have a number of parents who are very invested, and it's awesome to see that. But then you have those parents who they're not aware of how much they have to be involved in order for their children to understand and recognize that the time and the effort that they're putting in being in school is important, and there is value that they're going to get out of it, or that you have those who are, what would be the right word? They look to the school system to do it all, and not necessarily because they're not invested, but because they don't think that they're supposed to be more involved than what they are. But that does make a difference. And again, if we're talking from the standpoint of parents who have a vision for their family and for their child, there is expectations that they have set up that they're working on at home. There are also expectations just inherently in the school system, in the classroom, in the school building. If the parent and teacher are working together, then they have the opportunity to understand what is being modeled, what's being, what's the word that I want to use here, emphasized in both settings, so that there's consistency of what they are reinforcing. And that it helps the child to develop the characteristics, the virtues, the qualities, and learn the content with integrity within themselves. And it provides that trust from the adult to the child that opens up the adult's ability to learn from the child. Because sometimes, and you're taking me deeper into this than I thought we were going to have time to go, but I love it.
It's going where it needs to go.
Many times we have to, as adults, follow the child. Yes. And we insist that the child just follow the direction of the adult all the time, but there are reasons that the child may not always be able to do that, and the adult has to be open to following the child so that we can understand how to help the child be their best.
Hence the training that that educators go through. This is prior to this week or last week, there was professional development. That's the whole purpose of educators being professionally developed, and also having to show their hours. Their CEU units for the professional development aspect, because that training should happen in the classroom. The execution of that, the learning from that training should be implemented in the classroom. And far too often, pride negates all the training that they received. And the same thing with when I left the education system in 2016 and I started consulting on a full-time basis, I realized years before that even in my consulting business, I was doing the same thing that I was doing in the school systems.
Gotcha.
Because whenever I would talk to a business owner, I had to learn how they learn. I would give them a task. Hey, I need you to do this, this, and this, and this, and I need you to send me this document, that document, that document, so I can go ahead and either file your corporation or restructure your corporation or position you for funding or whatever I was doing. And then when they wouldn't do it in the timeline that we agreed to do it, my first thought was that something in what I told them to do, they don't know how to do.
Okay.
But the reason why I thought that, instead of thinking, oh, they're just not doing what I told them to do, and I'm going to have an attitude about it. The reason why I didn't go there is because of my training.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, as educators and even as professionals in our own rights of industry, we have to land on our training, because that's one thing that someone without training don't have.
Yes, ma'am.
So in recognizing that I asked this person to submit something that's clearly out of their scope of understanding. I had a client that literally did not like to look at any paperwork with numbers. I said, that's your whole portfolio. So what I had to do, I would ask questions. I said, would you like me to go in and talk to your accountant, if they had an accountant, or talk to whoever to get the information? Or would you like for me to take a deep dive, give me access to whatever, your drive or whatever? Yes, I would love that. I didn't want to say it. And they don't never want to say it.
Sure.
Just like a student. They're never going to tell you what the issue is, because they don't want to be singled out, because historically they've been punished for not being able to implement or execute a task.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So
yes,
I found to be the same when I started consulting on a full-time basis. It's the same thing I was experiencing. So when I listen with the professional ear. And that's what what teachers and educators, especially, as I was sharing with you, how we help to advocate for parents and students of special education, especially as a special education professional, lending to that training, as opposed to how you feel about how a parent is talking to you, or how you feel about how a student is talking to you. Lend to that training, so that you can some solutions can be adhered to and resolved.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And again, I love that you're saying what you're saying, and sharing examples from your own experience, because one of the things that I lift from there is that your experience, your knowledge, your training doesn't make you better than or superior to who you're working with. It makes you different in ways that add value. And pride will keep you from using that difference to bring out the value that you're there to bring out.
Absolutely.
And I'll add to that also that you can't be too rigid. And that pride will keep you from bending or from opening in ways that are helpful for what you're trying to do and for who you're trying to do it with. So again, you gotta be flexible. So Dr. Jones, I'll say again, these things that I'm speaking to with respect to the framework of thinking that I think lends to how we help to develop the skills and abilities of reasonable and effective thought in our work in schools and in our workplaces, in parenting and in teaching. I think that they do facilitate the understanding of what tools to use and how to use those tools. In this day and age, we have the internet. You can go to the internet and you can find an array of strategies, tools that will work. But again, unless you know how to think about what you're trying to accomplish and the use of those tools, you can't use those tools effectively. So again, I wanted to focus on that more so than focusing on just giving tools to use.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Hey, you directed this conversation in the perfect way. You're the professional. So I appreciate you for that. And I would like for you to let's take a transition here. Not really a transition, but let's talk about burnout.
Yes, ma'am.
So, we talked about the educators and utilizing their training and making sure that their environments are safe, and you also referred back to that vision, identifying the vision of what you want your space to look like, whether you are a student, parent, or a teacher. So let's talk about how to manage burnout and create balance.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. Again, I have a list,
Okay.
which I think is valuable. And it starts with setting clear and legitimate goals. And in my talk at the Defying Gravity Conference, I defined legitimate goals and spoke to that. I'm not going to go too much into that in this discussion,
Okay.
just because of time.
Okay.
But it's
We'll post a link to
okay.
you actually talking about that at the conference.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. Again, technology, you gotta love it.
Yeah.
But you start with setting clear, legitimate goals. And I say that recognizing how challenging that can be for some, that was something that in my path, in my career journey and personal journey has been very challenging. But I have appreciated learning to get better at it, which entails defining what you want to achieve and then ensures that those goals are genuine and meaningful. I wish we had time to talk about how many years of my life, I was pursuing what other people thought I should be doing and not giving enough thought to what is meaningful for me, what is my true purpose, and eventually, finding my way into that and just being very thankful for what that's opening up for me. So once you have been able to, and in the process of setting goals and identifying your legitimate goals, you have to develop a robust plan for achieving those goals. And that does entail outlining the steps necessary to reach the goals. And that includes knowing what the resources are, the time frames for reaching the goals, and assessing the potential obstacles, because we have to have smart goals and smart plans. That are specific, time bound. We know what goes into all of that. But that has to be robust so that as we have clarity in the goals, we have clarity in the plans that we are going to implement in order to achieve the goals. And in the process of that, building resilience, because again, we are going to encounter obstacles. That's why the goals have to be legitimate, because if they're not goals that are truly meaningful for you, as soon as you run into obstacles, you're going to stop. But when we're pursuing goals that are meaningful to us, those obstacles are not going to stop us. They probably will intensify the fire beneath us to continue to press toward them. So it's building resilience, because as we do overcome obstacles, it increases our confidence, it increases our strength, it increases our desire to keep going. So we're cultivating the ability to withstand the setbacks and remain focused on the goals despite the challenges. Listen, again, nothing worth doing is easy. And when things are challenging enough, we can't do them by ourselves. So, really, vision, the kinds of goals that we should be pursuing are bigger than what we can do by ourselves. So we have to seek support. We have to have support around us and networks around us that keep us encouraged, that feed us with information, that feed us with energy, that feed us with vibes, if you will, that help to keep us growing in our capacity to achieve the goals. So you're surrounding yourself with individuals who share your vision and can provide encouragement and assistance. Through all of this, we have to maintain integrity. We
Yeah.
have to be pursuing what aligns with our values and our life philosophies, which means we have to know what those are. And those are becoming clarified along the way as we are pursuing our goals. Hopefully, as in our parenting and in our classroom teaching, and from the parenting we've received, the classroom teaching that we've received, we've that helped to start to clarify what we should be pursuing. How am I constructed? How is the way that I'm constructed designed to make some kind of positive difference in the world? What is the difference that I'm supposed to make? And then how do I live in alignment with that? So maintaining integrity, ensure that your actions align with your values and principles, fostering, and as you do that, you're fostering trust and you're fostering respect, trust, self-trust and self-respect, but then also trust from others because they know that they know what to expect from you because it always lines up. And they respect that. Even people who don't necessarily like you, they might necessarily agree with you, but because they see your consistency, they're going to respect that. Now, I'll also stop here just a little bit longer to say that is huge for mental health, mental wellness. Again, I told you that early in my life, I was pursuing what other people wanted me to pursue, thought I should pursue. And I'm recognizing now the adversities that created for me and things that it set up in my mental functioning, in my emotional functioning that I'm still working on now. And thankful, I have the expectation that healing, is coming and will come, but that's critical. Living in alignment with your values and your philosophy is critical, and working toward legitimate goals helps with that. Let me also back up to say having the right people around you too is important for good mental health, for good mental wellness. Now, with all of that, you have to persist with determination because your goals that you're trying to achieve are important. They're valuable. They're meaningful. This is what you're here for. So you got to keep on persisting against the challenges in order to do it, which means continuously working toward your goals with dedication and resolve. Celebrating your progresses along the way and learning from your failures. Now, here's where we get to the nitty-gritty, because everything that I said up until now is about identifying and staying on the course toward achieving your goals. Here is the nitty-gritty to the person, to the individual. While you're doing all of that, you have to practice good self-care. The question was, how do we manage burnout? You have to practice good self-care. In the schools and our work environment, demands are coming at us from every direction all the time. And others want this done yesterday, and they don't care what it takes from you in order to get that done. But you have to know when to say, yeah, I understand you want that yesterday. That's not a priority for me right now, because in my understanding of my goals and my plan, this is what's critical for me now. In my understanding of where I am in terms of what's in my tank and what I need in my tank, not only to accomplish what you want me to accomplish for you, but what I need to accomplish for me. I got to practice good self-care. You have to do what keeps you in good condition to keep going. You have to recharge regularly, and you have to take good care of yourself, spirit, body, mind, and soul. You have to give your body proper rest. You have to give your body proper nourishment, eating healthy foods and drinking water and exercising. You have to
Oof.
take care of you. You have to do what keeps you centered, what keeps you in touch with your values and your philosophy so that you are maintaining integrity. You
Yeah.
have to take the time to check and assess where you are so that if you're starting to veer from that, you self-check, you course correct, and you bring yourself back to center. And it doesn't matter what somebody else wants from you or needs from you at that time. And that somebody else at times can even be your children. You know,
Yes.
you're going to be
Yep.
there for your children,
Mm-hmm.
but there are times you got to be there for you first before you can be there for your children.
Exactly. Yeah, and I know you wanted me to mention this anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and mention it because you
Yes, ma'am.
literally are reminding me. I'm literally in my head going through the um the memory of my recent, burnout.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just burnt out.
Yes,
I was
ma'am.
tired of, well, I stopped consulting. I burnt
Wow.
out in 2023 in consulting. I stopped doing that. And then January 1st of 2025, I ended a position which I had that actually I was in when I met you,
Mm-hmm.
daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
ended that position January. I said, I'm not going into 2025 doing anything that I don't want to do with anybody that I don't want to do it with.
Wonderful.
And because I researched who I was and my integrity, like, wait a minute, this is not how I work with kids,
Yes, ma'am.
and I don't care like how old they are, they're still kids, but I don't make them feel like they're little kids. But but there's a mutual respect there. But
Yes,
at the
ma'am.
same token, I didn't care for how others were engaging with, the students that I was engaging with. I was like, nope,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that. And then even more recently, I just shut it down.
Gotcha.
I shut it down over the last, I would say, 4 months. I shut it down, and I literally did not voluntarily shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I was already burnt out. But then the shutdown happened because my body said, okay, I'm shutting down. I don't care
Yes,
what you think you're going to do, Tyra. This is what I'm going to do. And I had to do what my body said, right?
yes, ma'am. You don't have a choice.
And then the interesting thing is what what I decided to do, okay, I'm already on a health, path journey.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter's a vegan and she encourages the whole family. She writes out meal plans for everybody, even my dad out
Awesome.
in Louisiana and
Awesome.
everybody. So I said, okay, I'm just going to stay on that path, but I'm going to increase the activity. So, and then there came an opportunity. I was like, okay, we make a lot of teas, and I developed a tea for my grandchild who had
What?
bronchitis. And look, it wiped out the bronchitis. And then they kept asking for more teas because it was helping. I said, okay, so I developed a product during that time. And that also lended me to farming. So I decided to start in a backyard garden.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to grow most of the herbs that I needed instead of going to the store and buy. So I could grow this stuff in the backyard.
Yes,
My
ma'am.
background is agriculture. I can do this.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was raised on a farm.
Uh-huh.
So I started doing that, and that became my safe haven. That's and it's still to this day my sacred place where
Mm-hmm.
I go to unwind, I go to enjoy. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
outside from 6 a.m. to almost nighttime,
Wow.
just doing whatever I needed to do in the garden,
Uh-huh.
organizing a new space. I'm building a deck myself. So
What? I love that.
I'm literally doing a DIY on everything that I'm doing, but that activity brought me back from the burnout. You know what I'm
Amazing.
saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
that's what you reminded me of. I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and mention it here.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. And again, that's a great example of what we're talking about. I mean, sometimes you just have to let everything drop, back away from it, and take care of you and relocate your center and do
Yes.
what keeps you there, do what keeps you grounded, and I think, some people may think of that as a hobby or finding a hobby. I don't know, you can call it what you want, but the critical piece is that it grounds you, it brings you back to center. And now, what you shared earlier with me before we started the podcast that you didn't say this time is during that time where you weren't able to get up for other things, you would get up to do the gardening.
All day.
And
Yes. I would get up 6 in the morning. I would be
mhm,
like, I remember one time I woke up at 4 a.m. Couldn't sleep anymore because I had been sleep. I was laying in bed all the time. And
mhm,
I was literally kept watching the blinds, waiting for that peak of sunlight so I can go out in the garden.
mhm.
And I'd be out there
Yes,
all
ma'am.
day. And then I'll come back in the evening. I didn't care if I did anything else, but I was out in that garden.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
you're
And
right.
that's beautiful. And the reason that's important is because you got to find your why. What
Mm-hmm.
makes you get up? What keeps you going?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes, it's not the hustle and bustle, sometimes it's not the grind, but there has to be times when it's about what's in your soul, what feeds your
yep,
soul. So
exactly.
so thank you for that. And the last point is speaking directly about balance, because the full question was how you manage burnout and create balance.
Right.
And I'll tell you, directly speaking to balance, I had a professor say to me when I was working on my doctorate, and listen, going through my doctorate was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. And I'm thankful to God
Mhm.
that He brought me all the way through it the way that He did.
Yeah.
But the professor said to me, balance is not linear. People think of balance as linear and they try to approach it that way, that we address and deal with everything equally. And
Yes.
he said, that's not what balance is. That balance changes and it fluctuates. And it's about giving what's needed, where it's needed, when it's needed. So the amount of attention and time one thing needs at one time it's going to be different than it
Shift.
needs at another time.
Yeah.
And now keep in mind, there's still only 60 minutes in an hour. There's still only 24 hours in a day. So when you give more time to one thing that had previously been getting less time, that means you're giving less time and effort to something else. And that's okay.
Hmm.
The issue is learning what is the right balance
Yeah.
over time.
Great point.
So those are critical. And because when we do that, so there's the tendency to feel guilty when we're not giving the same
Ooh,
amount of time to everything. And that guilt impacts your mental wellness.
it
But
does.
when you understand it like that, you don't feel guilty when you're not spending as much time with the kids because you have to spend more time with fill in the blank. You
Yeah.
have to do that.
Right. Right.
But understanding that balance changes, that and you are in control of
Hmm.
when you turn the time and the attention back to the kids because you know that they do need it. And
Absolutely.
again, that goes back to your integrity. It goes back to your goals, and your plan
I
and
would
your build.
also say that that applies to, I was thinking about students with their friends because when in K through 12, and they maybe even sometimes on the collegiate level too, their friends are so important because of the goal to fit in or
Mhm,
because of whatever reasoning that they're giving themselves as to why their friends are highly important.
mhm,
But there again, to your point, balance. is the key. Not spending, X amount of time with your friends is okay, just because you did it, just because you spent a lot of time before and now you don't, because you have different priorities. So, and especially when you notice, or you know that you need a break, and you need to transition into a quiet space, or a space that's safer for you to rejuvenate, and then come back to that group of friends.
Yes, ma'am.
So exactly. I wanted to relate that. That's in relation to what you were just sharing.
Yeah, and again, and thank you for that, because that is important, and I think particularly for that group, because there's social, what should I call it? I'm going to say, no, I can't call it that, because it means something else. Their social status is important. And, there is the fear that if I'm not investing in that, and not investing all of me in that all the time, then, that's going to crumble.
Right.
But it is important to understand there are other things that are important. And by investing in those things, you are giving yourself more of what you need to invest well in your social, at this point, I'm going to say social relationships.
Yeah.
Because I think at that point, it starts to shift from a focus and a concern with the social status to the relationships that support all the rest of your life.
You hit the nail right on the head with that one.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. So, Dr. Jones, that's my answer to your question at this point: how we manage burnout and create balance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and encouragement with us. Do you have any last statements or last insights that you would like to share?
I do want to go back to just a little bit. Okay. Let's see. So I do want to make some connection between mental health and, defying gravity, defying the concerns that get in the way of us developing into who we are completely, into supporting and maintaining good mental health. And I think in general, being who we want to be. And some of it, again, connects back to the talk from Defying Gravity. But I want to say this, is going back to the concept of legitimate goals, that your legitimate goals are going to bring you fulfillment, but your legitimate goals are also going to add value to and increase the quality of life of people around you and for those whom you serve in the work that you do. So, there is a connection, between our mental health and the press, that we're in, to do good things in this world for ourselves and for others, and to, maintain that healthy and necessary connection to others in our community. So just a few thoughts, again, that I want to leave with that. On this path, you establish identity, significance, and community. So these are stabling forces that promote, incentivize, and inspire wellness. Yeah. With that, challenges and stressors are less likely to be catastrophic for those who are actively engaged in the production of their legitimate goals. So for you, continue in good habits of proper self-care.
Absolutely.
Stresses may be greater for those in pursuit of legitimate goals, but belief in the value of those goals and one's abilities to reach production of them enables the mindset that the stressors, no matter how intense, are worth the future benefits of reaching the goals. So you'll find a way. I want to encourage you. You will find a way. So take care of yourself along the way. And there's always things in life trying to pull us down. So we have to find our own reasons to resist them. Our why must stay strong enough to get us back up when challenges succeed in knocking us down. Amen. Our health is a powerful asset to get us through. Yeah. So those are the thoughts that I want to leave you with. And Dr. Jones, if there's anything else that you want me to share or cover or discuss, please let me know.
Okay, well, no, that's a good ending. I mean, I'm telling you, you pretty much wrapped it up. And first, and again, thank you for all of your insights. And I know I was helped. And I know for a fact that our listeners are going to be helped. You know, whether you're an educator, whether you're a student, K through 12 or collegiate level, and also whether you are a parent. Remember, and then talking to our listeners, for our listeners, remember, investing in your mental health is investing in your future. So if
Absolutely.
you'd like to learn more about AMEC programs or the Defying Gravity Empowerment Conference, visit our website at www.amecprograms.org. I'm also going to have the link to Dr. Robinson's portion in the Defying Gravity 2025 event, where he is mentioning some of the topics that he mentioned earlier. So be sure to click that link and check it out. This has been AMEC Amplified, and we'll see you next time.
And thank you again for having me, Dr. Jones.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
AMEC. Join us as we embark upon a student-led podcast journey, bringing to the forefront back-to-school resources for high school and college students, parents, and teachers. If you are a student and interested in hosting future shows, contact us on our website at amecprograms.org/sign up. AMEC Amplified Podcast.